You are listening to ReachMD XM157, the channel for medical professionals. In cooperation with the American Medical Association Foundation and in association with the Pfizer Medical Humanities Initiative, ReachMD is proud to bring you the following interview with Dr. Viola Startzman, recipient of the Jack B. McConnell MD Award for Excellence in Volunteerism from the 2008 AMA Foundation Excellence in Medicine Awards, held March 31st in Washington, D.C. Your host for the interview is Dr. Michael Greenberg.
ReachMD would like to congratulate you on winning the 2008 Jack B. McConnell MD Award for Excellence in Volunteerism.
Thank you.
We're privileged to speak with you today. I understand that you're known as Dr. Vi in your clinic. Now, you grew up during a turbulent time in the world's history. Would you tell us a bit about where you grew up and any early influences in your upbringing that led you to pursue a medical career?
I was born in 1914 at the beginning of the First World War in a small town in southeastern Ohio. My father was a harness maker and my mother a homemaker. We did pretty well. We were members of a Presbyterian church and things went along pretty well, but we also experienced the great fall of Wall Street of 1929, which then went on into the Depression. And so I graduated from high school in 1931. I had decided or thought when I was 12 that I wanted to be a doctor. That seemed rather impossible for a woman to do in those days. However, that continued to be my plan. While I was in college, I usually had 2 part-time jobs in order to help pay expenses to get through. After graduation, I borrowed money to take a laboratory technician course at the Institute of Pathology in Cleveland, Ohio. After that year, I worked for 6 years in the city health laboratories as a bacteriologist and eventually got into medical school in 1942. I was in a class of 1 woman in 4 women out of a class of 100. And we did the 4 years in 3 years, starting in the summer of 42 and graduating in the summer of 45. I decided I'd like to do pediatrics, so I had training in pediatrics at Babies and Children's Hospital in Cleveland, now known as Rainbow Children's Hospital. After that training, which was 5 years, I then had 4 years experience of private practice in Worcester, Ohio, and then a friend called and he and I started the pediatric department at the Cleveland Clinic, and that was in 1952. Now that department has almost 200 physicians, but Dr. Mercer and I did all the work when we first started. I then married a physician in 1954 with 4 sons to raise and moved back to Worcester and then became the director of the health service for the College of Worcester, where I worked then until 1979 when I retired.
Dr. Startzman, can you tell us what were the influences in your upbringing that led you to pursue medicine?
Well, I don't know why exactly. There were no physicians in the families, but I did admire the one doctor in our little town. He always seemed to be so helpful, and he had helped us a great deal in our family in illnesses and so forth. And I thought I wanted to be a medical missionary in China, of all things, in those days. And I guess I just admired him. I liked the sciences, and I always wanted to know what was going on. And I guess that was it primarily.
Dr. Startzman, as a young woman, was your decision to be a physician uncomfortable for your family? And did they support you in your choice?
Well, not quite. They were, really, because my parents had a great deal of influence on me, and I appreciated them a great deal. I remember my father saying, well, you don't want to go into that. That's so hard, and women aren't supposed to be there. We were only supposed to be nurses in the health care area. But they supported my idea, but I'd have to do it on my own because they were unable to financially help me.
And I understand you were initially denied admission to medical school.
Oh, yes. And my interview for admission, the person who interviewed me was Dr. Solomon, who was head of the pharmacology department. And I heard all the reasons why women should not be in medicine, and they were many. But fortunately, I had two physicians who knew me. One was Dr. Harry Goldblatt, for whom I'd done some work when I was in training as a clinical pathologist, and so he knew some of my work. And Dr. McGrail, who was in the pharmacology department, who had been the consultant and came every day to the health laboratories. So he had met me there and saw my work. So those are two heroes as far as I'm concerned, because they rather went to bat for me, so to speak, and urged my admission. So that's how I really got in.
If you've just tuned in, you're listening to a special interview from the 2008 AMA Foundation Excellence in Medicine Awards on ReachMD XM 157. Your host is Dr. Michael Greenberg, and speaking with him today is the 2008 recipient of the Jack B. McConnell MD Award for Excellence in Volunteerism Award, Dr. Viola Startzman.
You're being awarded the Jack B. McConnell MD Award for Excellence in Volunteerism. Throughout your life as a physician, it seems that volunteering has been fundamental to you as a person and as a doctor. Can you first tell us what inspired you to choose pediatrics, and then tell us what compels you to give so much back to the community?
Well, I liked pediatrics, I liked babies, and I liked children, and found it good to be working with families. I mean, with pediatrics, you're working with the entire family, really. And I volunteered in some of the free baby clinics in Cleveland, Ohio, and saw quite a bit of poverty. During the 6 years that I worked for the city in those laboratories, I lived in a settlement house called Hiram House in the lower part, so to speak, of Cleveland, and I saw poverty there. I worked with the girls and did some programs in the evenings and had a little basketball team of girls, and we traveled over the city for games and all. But I think that had quite a bit of influence on my seeing poverty and how hard it was for some people to find existence. And I'm sure that that was part of developing my feelings.
Could you please tell us about the Viola Startzman Free Clinic? You started, I believe it was 1995.
Well, that's when we opened. The mayor of Worcester, his name was Brenneman, was also chairperson of the Board of Governors of the Worcester Community Hospital. And they wondered if there was anything that needed to be done in the health care programming of our county. And so he appointed 12 of us as a kind of steering committee. And I was appointed chairperson of that committee. And we started working in January of 1992, and did quite a bit of surveying of the county on needs and so forth. And the one thing that kept coming up as the one issue was the need for some kind of a community or free clinic, because so many people were not getting medical care, or it was not available to them. So our steering committee worked on that for 3 years and finally found a place to be and that kind of thing. And we opened in August of 1995.
How was it getting your clinic started? And can you think of any one specific incident that really stands out in your memory as being special?
Well, it was difficult beginning the clinic to start with, and that is convincing people when you were asking for money and that kind of thing, to convince them that this was really something that was needed in the community, because people were not aware that so many people had no money for health care. I can't think of just one specific thing, but so many people have helped us, and our volunteers are just tremendous. I mean, we've moved into this larger building in 2004, and people offer not only money, but services. Even there's a little sixth grade group of youngsters who weed the laws around there for us and things like that. But so many of the individuals of the community and businesses and so forth have been very, very helpful to us. So I find it a little difficult. I'm really amazed at the community support for our clinic.
Dr. Vi, you're being awarded the Jack B. McConnell MD Award for Excellence in Volunteerism. It's an outstanding award. How do you think that your free clinic can help change the face of American medicine?
Well, I feel very honored. The idea of the so-called free clinic is so needed, and of course many are developing over the country, that it only emphasizes, I hope, the fact that we do need to take a pretty critical look at the healthcare system of the nation. And as you well know, there are too many, about 45 million people without health insurance. And these problems, whatever we can do to help that situation, I think is fine and should be done. And so this award, for me, is only an indication of, I think, the need for volunteerism and some answers to be found for the healthcare system. Volunteerism is very important as far as I'm concerned. Without the volunteers, we would not be in existence. And I think that holds true of many situations in which volunteers are important. So I think this is just an indication that we need a little more help in the healthcare programming.
Dr. Startzman, I want to truly thank you for joining us. It's been an honor and a privilege to speak with you.
You have been listening to a special interview from the 2008 AMA Foundation Excellence in Medicine Awards on ReachMD XM 157, the channel for medical professionals. To listen to or download this program, please visit ReachMD.com and register with the promotion code AMAF.